I'll start at the beginning, which was about 8 years ago. I was working in corporate America. I was pretty successful working for a Fortune 500 company, well into six-figure income, and I had a pretty great life other than my health. My health was failing me in a lot of different ways, and it was getting really difficult for me, just with work, with just everyday tasks. I was getting to the point where I was having a very hard time carrying on a conversation. I couldn't read anymore. Simple daily tasks like going to the grocery store were almost impossible for me, and cooking a meal was like dangerous. So I eventually got released of my job. I lost my job, and I immediately started interviewing for other jobs, and I wasn't able to make it through an interview at this time without crying. So nobody hired me, and this was the biggest turning point in my life, because I didn't know what I was going to do or how I was ever going to recover physically, emotionally, or to get back on my feet with working or anything. So I just decided I'm just going to go on vacation, and I'm just going to go just see if I can have a good time for a little while. Maybe the answers will come. And I decided to go to Hawaii. This is where everything just turned around for me completely in Hawaii. So while I was in Hawaii, I realized that it was a place that I would be able to live in a much simpler way. I actually decided to move there and live in a tent, where I didn't have to worry about taking care of a lot of my basic needs, like putting a roof over my head, and remove a lot of stress from my life, and just be still for a while and focus on what was really important, which was my health. So obviously my life changed dramatically, and when I moved there, I found myself fully in survival mode. It was a lot scarier than it seemed when I made that decision, and I found that I really had to turn to prayer, which is something that I had never really done before in my life. I had grown up Catholic, but I never really believed in the things that I had learned, because I was much more of a logical thinker, and needed proof really to verify that there was anything out there that existed beyond myself. So I wouldn't say that I was ever religious before, but when I found myself in Hawaii, I felt like I needed some help. So I started living my life in a very different way, and I didn't ask for much, but what I was realizing is what I did ask for was coming to me in very magical ways, very quickly, and so it's something that really solidified my belief. And the first time that I ever worked with anybody else was when my friend called me from Texas. She called and she said that she was in a pretty severe state of depression and in a lot of pain, and she was having a really hard time. So I immediately just said, well, let me help you. And I didn't know how I was going to help her at the time, but all I could think of was to pray for her. So I asked her, can I say some prayers for you? And she said, sure. So my phone was the battery was about to die at that time, so I told her I would call her back. So I went to go charge my phone, and while it was charging, I started making a list. And I started with some really basic things like clear traumas, any traumas that she's had in her life, starting with birth trauma, surgical traumas. If there's any damage that's been done to her DNA, clear that. Show her how to be happy, open up neurotransmitters for happiness and peace and joy. And this turned into a list of 276 items. It took me about 3 hours to write, and at the end of it, I just simply said, okay, do all this for Jessica. And then I took my phone and I drove back down to cell phone range, because I was living off the grid at the time. And when she answered the phone, which was about 15 minutes later, she said, what did you just do? She didn't even say hello. She just said, what did you just do? And I said, I don't know. Why? What happened? And she said, I just got out of bed for the first time in months. And she said that she was feeling better, and she sounded brighter and happier than I had heard her for a really long time. And it was pretty incredible, actually. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know for sure that it was going to last. So I just said, well, let me call you tomorrow. So the next day when I called her, she said that she was feeling great, and she had gotten out of bed that morning and gotten dressed and went out looking for a job, and she was super excited about one of the interviews that she went on. They took her to lunch, and she said everything was great, and people were telling her that she looked totally different and asking her what she did, and that was how it started. So I was pretty amazed with the results that Jessica had, and when I was reviewing the list, I realized that a lot of the stuff on the list was stuff I could benefit from too. So I had never really put that much intention into myself, so I asked for everything on the list to be done for me, and this is when my life changed drastically. And the next time I went to farmers market, several people walked up to me and they were asking, what have you been doing? You look great, and your energy is totally different. And I could tell they were really impressed, and I felt great, and I was super excited, and it was the first time since I'd been in Hawaii where I could really maintain conversations without crying. So it was quite a big change for me too. And anytime anybody would talk to me about this, I offered the same thing to them. I told them it's this program that I wrote and asked them if I could do it for them, and this is how I started working with other people. Since then, I've started doing my work more professionally, and it's going very well. I'm very excited to be hearing the results.